The sound of soft R&B plays under a quiet confession. I wish that we were able to really work out our issues, Rozonda Chilli Thomas says, her voice steady but heavy. She talks about baggage they both brought into the relationship, how it all stacked up, and how in the end that weight crushed something that once felt unbreakable. At 54 years old, Chilli from TLC is no longer dodging the hard questions. She has finally started to open up about the tragic truth that piece by piece shattered her shot at lasting happiness. She was once just a teenage girl, but the industry dressed her up and sold her as an adult fantasy. On stage and in videos, she played the role of the perfect girlfriend, the wife-like partner in boyfriend-girlfriend relationships that were never meant to carry that kind of weight. When those teenage marriages fell apart, the heartbreak felt real, even if the relationship was never built to survive. Later, she would turn down a marriage proposal from the man who had worshipped her since childhood, Usher Raymond, because she believed he was still hiding parts of himself. She wished they could have worked through it, but deep down she knew something about his life, and his truth wasn't fully on the table. Her decision and the pain that followed would change everything. Rozonda Chilli Thomas was born on February 27, 1971, in Atlanta, Georgia, into a world that was already setting the stage for who she would become. She grew up in the Deep South, raised primarily by her mother after her father walked out when she was just 2 years old. According to what she has shared, that absence left a wound that never quite closed, a quiet ache that later shaped how she dealt with love, trust, and men. As a teenager, Rozonda earned the nickname Chilli because of her fiery personality and striking looks. At Benjamin Mays High School, she was the kind of girl people noticed when she walked into a room, beautiful, charismatic, magnetic. But behind the smiles and the effortless confidence, she was slowly creating strict rules for herself about how she expected to be treated. Watching her mother struggle as a single parent, she promised herself she would never accept the kind of disrespect and neglect she had grown up seeing. In 1990, when Chilli was only 19, everything changed. She joined a new girl group alongside Tione T-Boz Watkins and Lisa Left Eye Lopes. At first, the group went by the name Second Nature. Later, they would become TLC, using the first letters of each member's nickname. So all we had was this song and these jacked-up pictures, Chilli once joked, remembering the early days. I hope nobody ever finds those pictures. Those rough beginnings were the foundation for what would become one of the most powerful female groups in music history. From the start, Chilli brought something different to TLC. T-Boz had the raspy, sultry lead vocals. Left Eye fired off fast, sharp, unpredictable verses. Chilli became the visual centerpiece. Her natural beauty, paired with a rare ability to appear both innocent and sensual, at the same time made her the member that young men across America, quietly or loudly, fell in love with. But TLC wasn't just another girl group chasing a hit. They were a statement. They talked about protection, self-respect, and independence in a way mainstream female artists had rarely done before. Chilli believed in that mission completely. She used her position to tell young women they had the right to demand respect, to set boundaries, to say no. In 1992, TLC exploded onto the scene with their debut album Ooh, 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 Ooh on the TLC tip. The project delivered major hits like Ain't Too Proud to Beg and What About Your Friends. But more than the songs, it was their image that grabbed the world by the throat. Baggy clothes, condoms sewn onto outfits, bold messages wrapped in playful energy. Chilli's mix of beauty, stage presence, and the group's unapologetic approach to talking about female sexuality and safety turned her into an instant icon. She was the face on posters, the girl in the music videos, the fantasy, and the spokesperson at the same time. Their real breakthrough came with the 1994 album, Crazy Sexy Cool, which would reportedly go on to sell over 11 million copies in the United States alone. The album gave the world Waterfalls, a song that became a cultural landmark. But it was another track, Creep, that cemented Chilli's influence. Creep pushed into territory people weren't used to hearing women talk about so openly: female desire, cheating, and the messy reality of relationships. TLC didn't just talk about heartbreak. They exposed what people did when they were heartbroken. At a time when female R&B artists were expected to stay quiet about such issues, Chilli and her group walked right into the fire. By the mid-1990s, Chilli wasn't just famous, she was everywhere. Her posters covered bedroom walls across the country. Somewhere in one of those rooms, a young boy named Usher Raymond, IV, taped her image above his bed. As the story has been told, he would lie there staring at her face and tell anyone who would listen that she was his dream girl. At just 8 years old, Usher had already declared Chilli his ideal woman. He had no idea that years later he would not only meet her, but fall deeply in love with her, and that their connection would leave scars on both of them. Chilli's appeal was never only about her looks, even though she was undeniably stunning. She represented a new kind of woman, confident but approachable, sensual, without being vulgar, independent without being cold. She could be soft and strong at the same time. For young men, she was the fantasy of the perfect girlfriend. For young women, she was the blueprint for the kind of respect they wanted. As the late 1990s rolled in, TLC kept ruling the charts with songs like Diggin' on You and No Scrubs. No Scrubs would become an anthem, a line in the sand against broke, immature, or disrespectful men. The group's musical message about not accepting scrub behavior became Chilli's personal rulebook. Those standards, sharpened by her childhood and reinforced by TLC's lyrics, became her armor. But armor can turn into a wall. The expectations she placed on men born from survival and self-respect grew so high that even the most devoted admirers struggled to reach them. While Chilli was busy rewriting what female empowerment looked like on television and in music, a young R&B singer was watching her from a distance. Usher Raymond IV had been fixated on her since he was a child. As his own career took off in the mid-1990s, his fantasy started drifting into reality. Eventually, the boy with the poster on his wall became the man who would win her heart. But according to reports and later allegations, he was carrying secrets about his past, his health, and perhaps even about himself, that would one day tear their relationship apart and leave both of them questioning everything they thought they understood about love. Usher and Chilli began dating in 2001. He was still young, still figuring out who he was, his career rising fast. He had admired her for years, almost like a fan who suddenly got pulled through the screen. He has said he had a poster of her on his wall when he was 8. To him, she wasn't just a woman, she was the superstar he grew up idolizing. When they finally came together, it felt like a fantasy turned real. Usher often called himself her biggest fan. Chilli understood how much he adored her. The love between them was real, but real love doesn't automatically mean easy love. "We just had differences," she later admitted. "And unfortunately, because of the baggage that we all carry, it just didn't work." Usher said he wanted to marry Chilli. At one point he proposed. She turned him down. That no shattered him. He has spoken about how the rejection made him pull back emotionally, how it broke his trust in women, and made it harder for him to open up again. He knew he had hurt her too, but the blow he felt from that moment stayed with him. He described feeling as if her refusal meant he simply wasn't enough. That kind of wound doesn't just disappear, it becomes material. Out of that pain came music. In 2004, after their breakup, Usher released Confessions, an album steeped in themes of love, guilt, infidelity, and betrayal. Many listeners connected the music directly to his relationship with Chilli, even though the full truth behind the stories remained off the record. One of the songs on the album was called Superstar, a title that seemed to echo how he saw Chilli, always larger than life, always the unreachable woman he once kept on his bedroom wall. Some people claimed that one reason Chilli turned down the proposal was because she felt deeply unsure about him. There were rumors and speculation that Usher might have been wrestling with questions about his own identity. Fans noticed that his most emotional, tortured songs came right after their breakup and started guessing there was more under the surface. But the reality is simple: no one outside that relationship knows exactly what happened when the cameras were off. Usher never confirmed the rumors. Chilli stayed silent about those specific questions. What's undeniable is that both of them were in pain. "I wish that we were able to really work out our issues," Chilli has said. "If we had met later, this would be a totally different behind the music." Usher later explained that one of the reasons their relationship failed was because of the strict rules Chilli had for him. He felt like her standards didn't match who he was at that point in his life. He was young, overwhelmed, still building himself. Emotionally, they kept missing each other. He wanted her to be closer, to be more present in his day-to-day life. At times he felt she stayed guarded, keeping a distance he couldn't close. He believed she didn't fully trust or believe in the love he was offering. That only made the tension between them worse. Chilli, in her own words, painted a similar picture, but from a different angle. She said that from the outside, people probably thought their relationship was perfect, two superstars deeply in love. But on the inside, things were hard, uncomfortable, complicated. Usher, she said, felt pressured to act a certain way, just to be with her. It was like he was trying on a version of himself that didn't quite fit. Their love story stretched on and off for years. Each time they tried to make it work, each time it cracked in the same places. In the end, it couldn't survive. Chilli believed Usher simply could not give her what she truly needed. Usher later insisted that he had been serious about her, that he didn't play with her heart. He told her, "I did everything I thought you wanted me to do, but maybe my best wasn't good enough." That should have been the end of their tragedy. But years later, new allegations would surface around Usher, accusations that made the world look back at their breakup and quietly wonder what Chilli had seen coming that nobody else did. According to court filings and public statements, attorney Lisa Bloom filed a lawsuit in California on behalf of 3 people who claimed that Usher failed to tell them he had a sexually transmitted disease before being intimate with them. Reports stated that Usher had allegedly been diagnosed with herpes around 2009, and it was noted that he had never publicly denied those earlier documents. These claims became major headlines. The 3 accusers, 2 women and 1 man, said they had contact with Usher after 2012. One of them, a woman named Quantasia Sharpton, chose to speak publicly. The other 2 kept their identities hidden. The lawsuit, filed in Los Angeles, accused Usher of battery fraud and negligence, and claimed that he caused emotional distress. One of the individuals reportedly tested positive for herpes. Sharpton said she tested negative but still felt deeply violated. She explained that if she had known Usher allegedly had herpes, she never would have agreed to be intimate with him. She said her right to make an informed choice had been taken away. Sharpton said she met Usher at one of his concerts on her 19th birthday. According to her account, they later met at a hotel, had intimate contact, and he never warned her about any disease. After that night, she claimed he never contacted her again. Even though her test result came back negative, she said the fear, the confusion, and the sense of betrayal stayed with her, and that was why she chose to speak publicly. Lisa Bloom, her attorney, stood beside her and made something very clear. People, she argued, have a right to be told if someone they are with has a serious sexually transmitted infection. If Mr. Raymond is in fact a carrier of the virus, as these reports state, she said, my 3 clients alleged that he violated their rights by failing to warn them prior to having sexual contact with them. Bloom referenced older legal documents that reportedly showed Usher had been diagnosed with herpes around 2009 or 2010, and that in 2012 he paid $1.1 million to settle a separate case with another woman who claimed he gave her the disease. These reports made people speculate whether there had been a pattern. Bloom also said more individuals had reached out to her claiming they too had been intimate with Usher and were never warned. A few weeks earlier, it had been reported that Usher paid a woman more than $1 million to resolve a similar claim. As the new lawsuit unfolded, he stayed silent in public. That silence to many felt louder than any statement. Bloom argued that if Usher tested negative, he should say so. But if he was positive, she said he needed to take responsibility and be honest with anyone he had been with. Her clients were not just asking for money. They wanted the court to ensure that if the allegations were true, Usher would be required to disclose his status to future partners, so no one else would face the same fear and uncertainty. Sharpton said she stepped forward, not only for herself, but for others who might be scared to speak. She wanted to prevent anyone else from living with that kind of secret dread. Around the same time, other details and comments from the past began to resurface. In a 2012 interview, rapper Sean Diddy Combs made a strange remark. He said that he and Usher used to wake up together, then quickly added pause as if he realized how it sounded. Fans thought the comment was odd, and some people started speculating whether there had ever been more than just a mentor-protege dynamic there. Nothing was ever confirmed, but the clip kept circulating, feeding online theories. Some critics claimed Usher hadn't only been groomed by one powerful figure, but by several industry heavyweights. They suggested that as a young artist he had been pulled into a world where boundaries were blurred and control was rarely in his hands. In a 2010 interview with MTV, Usher made a comment that caught attention. He said that bisexual people were great friends while discussing his music video for Lil Freak, a project filled with suggestive themes. In another interview in 2008, he talked about the dating scene, saying there were fewer men and suggesting that more women were starting to date other women. These statements, when replayed later, made some fans wonder what Usher really believed about sexuality in relationships and what he might have been hinting at intentionally or not. But again, none of this resulted in any confirmed revelations about his own private life. Usher chose to keep most of his personal world locked away. He never fully addressed what Diddy meant in that interview. He didn't publicly walk step by step through the accusations. He focused on his music, his children, and the partner standing beside him in the present. Meanwhile, for Chilli, the fallout of their love story hit in a different way. After their relationship ended in 2004, she realized that her private life had quietly taken over her public identity. The woman who had once been the face of female empowerment was now being reduced to gossip about her dating life and so-called impossible standards. The same industry that once celebrated her as an icon started labeling her as difficult, high maintenance, and too demanding. Casting directors, according to reports, saw her as a problem. Record executives questioned whether her brand of empowerment, the one that built TLC's legacy, still had a place in a more explicit, fast-moving era. The lyrics of No Scrubs, which had once inspired a generation of women, were now being twisted and used against her. Proof. Some said that she was unrealistic, picky, and out of touch. TLC's momentum had taken a devastating blow long before that. In 2002, Lisa Left Eye Lopez died in a car accident, a loss that tore a hole straight through the group's core. "This is so hard because it's such a reality check," Chilli said at the time. "It's only two of us up here and she's so missed." Without Left Eye TLC was incomplete. That missing piece made it harder for Chilli to stay visible in a music landscape that was shifting under her feet. By the mid-2000s, hip-hop and R&B had moved toward a more overtly explicit style, one that clashed with TLC's mix of safety messages, playful sexuality, and empowerment. Artists like Lil' Kim and Christina Aguilera were pushing visual and lyrical boundaries in ways that made TLC's earlier approach seem almost conservative by comparison. Chilli also watched as younger stars like Beyoncé and Ciara stepped directly into the space TLC had helped build, but with updated sounds, fresh visuals, and new messages that resonated with a different generation. The empowerment anthems Chilli had helped pioneer started to feel dated in the eyes of executives and younger fans. Record labels that once chased TLC were now investing heavily in artists who could bend, reinvent, and adapt faster to trends. Chilli turned to reality television, hoping to rebuild her image and show the world who she really was. Shows like What Chilli Wants were supposed to remind people of her worth, not just as a singer, but as a woman searching for real love. Instead, the edit often reinforced the same narrative that she was too picky, too specific, too demanding. "I don't have time to play around," she said on the show. The series followed her as she dated, went on setups, and met new men. But every failed connection became proof in the eyes of viewers that her standards were impossible to satisfy. Behind the scenes, the financial reality was grim. TLC had sold millions of records, but like so many artists of their era, their contracts had reportedly been exploitative. The money didn't match the success. Chilli didn't walk away with the kind of wealth fans assumed she had. Without consistent income from new hit records or major endorsement deals, maintaining a luxurious lifestyle became difficult. The world saw the glamorous surface. Few people knew how close the numbers were behind closed doors. By the 2010s, Chilli had essentially become part of the nostalgia circuit, performing TLC classics at casinos